Maya Chen woke up at 4 in the morning, but she hadn't really slept. She'd been staring at the ceiling for hours, watching the shadows change as car headlights occasionally swept across her bedroom wall. The apartment was too quiet. It had been quiet for 3 months now, ever since her mom passed away. Before that, there was always some kind of noise. Her mom calling from the other room, asking for her medication. The television playing those old game shows her mom loved. Even the sound of the oxygen machine had become familiar, almost comforting in a strange way. Now there was nothing. Just silence and Maya's own thoughts, which weren't good company these days. She got out of bed and didn't bother turning on the lights. She knew every corner of this place by heart. 22 steps from her bedroom to the bathroom. 13 more to the kitchen. She'd counted them so many times during those long nights taking care of her mom, trying to move quietly so she wouldn't wake her. Maya looked at herself in the bathroom mirror. She was only 34, but the woman staring back at her looked older. Dark circles under her eyes, hair that needed washing. She couldn't remember the last time she'd actually cared about how she looked. What was the point? There was no one to look good for anymore. She thought about Daniel, her ex-fiancé. That still felt weird to say. They'd been together for 6 years. 6 years of building a life together, making plans, talking about kids and buying a house and growing old together. Then her mom got sick and everything changed. Maya had to cut back her hours at work to take care of her. She was a pediatric nurse at the children's hospital, and she loved her job, but her mom needed her more. Daniel said he understood at first, but as the months went on, he grew distant. They stopped going out, stopped talking about the future. Maya was too exhausted to notice what was happening until it was too late. He sat her down one evening and told her he'd met someone else. Someone from his office, someone who had time for him, who wasn't always tired and stressed and dealing with death. That's what he said, dealing with death. Like her mom was just an inconvenience. He moved out 2 weeks before her mom died. Maya wondered sometimes if her mom had held on longer because she knew. Mothers always know. She'd squeeze Maya's hand and tell her everything would be okay, even when they both knew it wouldn't be. After the funeral, things got worse. The hospital had budget cuts. They let go of several nurses, and Maya was one of them. They said it was because of her reduced hours. Her performance had slipped. They were sorry. They really were. But they had to make difficult decisions, Maya understood. She didn't fight it. She didn't have the energy to fight anymore. She made coffee in the dark kitchen and sat at the small table where she and her mom used to have breakfast. The chair across from her was empty. Everything felt empty. Her bank account was nearly empty after the medical bills and funeral costs. Her apartment felt empty without her mom's things, which she'd finally packed up last week. Her future felt empty, just a long stretch of nothing ahead of her. That's when she decided. She couldn't do this anymore. She couldn't keep waking up to this crushing weight on her chest. This feeling that everything good was behind her and nothing waited ahead. She was tired, so incredibly tired, and she wanted the pain to stop. She'd been thinking about it for weeks, planning it. Not in a dramatic way, just quietly acknowledging that this was what she needed to do. She'd written letters to the few people who might notice she was gone. Her best friend from nursing school, her aunt in California. They were sealed and sitting on the kitchen counter, addressed and stamped. Maya finished her coffee and put on her jacket. It was early March and the mornings were still cold. She walked out of her apartment without looking back. She didn't lock the door. What did it matter now? The streets were empty at this hour. Just a few delivery trucks and the occasional cab. The sky was that strange color it gets before dawn. Not quite night, but not yet day. Everything felt suspended, caught between two worlds. That's exactly how Maya felt. Caught between the life she used to have and whatever came next. Except she'd decided what came next. She walked for 20 minutes to the bridge. It wasn't a famous bridge or a particularly tall one, but it was tall enough. She'd looked it up. She'd researched everything, wanting to be sure. That's the nurse in her, she thought bitterly. Always thorough. Always prepared. The pedestrian walkway was empty. Of course it was. Normal people were home in bed, sleeping peacefully, looking forward to tomorrow. Maya stood at the railing and looked down at the dark water below. The river reflected the city lights, making it look almost pretty. She gripped the cold metal railing and felt her heart pounding. This was it. This was really it. She thought she'd feel more afraid, but instead she felt calm, almost peaceful. The decision was made. The pain would stop. She wouldn't have to wake up to that crushing silence anymore. She wouldn't have to face another day of feeling worthless and alone and like a complete failure at life. Maya closed her eyes and took a deep breath. She was about to climb over the railing when she heard it. A sound, high-pitched, desperate. She froze. Her hands still gripping the railing, her body tensed to move, but something stopped her. The sound came again. It was coming from below the bridge, somewhere in the bushes along the riverbank. It was a baby crying. Maya's mind struggled to process this. A baby out here? At 5 in the morning? It didn't make sense. Maybe she was imagining it. Maybe her mind was playing tricks on her. Maybe this was just her brain's way of stopping her from doing what she came here to do. But the crying continued. Louder now. More urgent. The sound pierced through everything. Through her fog of depression and her carefully made plans and her crushing despair. It was the sound of a baby in distress, and 13 years of nursing experience couldn't be turned off. Not even now. Maya stepped back from the railing. Her legs moved before her brain caught up. She ran along the walkway, looking for the stairs down to the riverbank. The crying grew louder as she descended, her heart now pounding for a completely different reason. She pushed through the bushes, her jacket catching on branches, not caring. The crying was close now, so close. And then she saw it. A cardboard box, the kind that might have held a television or a microwave. It was partially hidden under a bush, and inside it, wrapped in what looked like a dirty towel, was a baby. A newborn baby, screaming its tiny lungs out. Maya dropped to her knees beside the box, her hands already reaching for the infant. Every thought of what she'd been about to do vanished completely. There was only this moment. Only this baby who needed help. Right now. She lifted the tiny body carefully, assessing with trained eyes even as her hands shook. The baby was cold, so cold. The umbilical cord was still attached, tied off crudely with what looked like a shoelace. The skin had a bluish tint. This baby hadn't been here long, maybe an hour or two, but in this cold, that was too long. The baby's cry weakened, and that scared Maya more than the strong crying had. A weak cry meant the baby was losing the fight. Hypothermia, possible infection. Who knew what else? Maya yanked open her jacket and pulled the baby against her chest, wrapping the jacket around them both. Skin-to-skin contact. It was what the baby needed most right now besides medical care. She fumbled for her phone with one hand, the other holding the tiny body close. Her fingers were shaking so badly she could barely dial. 9. 1. 1. 1. What's your emergency? I found a baby, Maya said, her voice cracking. A newborn, abandoned under the bridge on Riverside. The baby's hypothermic and in distress. I need an ambulance now. She rattled off her exact location, her nursing training taking over. She described the baby's condition, estimated age, the color of the skin, the breathing pattern. She stayed on the line like the dispatcher asked, all while rubbing the baby's back, trying to stimulate breathing, trying to warm the tiny body with her own heat. Come on, little one, she whispered. Stay with me. Please stay with me. The baby let out another weak cry, and Maya felt tears streaming down her face. She didn't know if she was crying for the baby or for herself, or for the strange twist of fate that had brought her to this bridge at exactly this moment. 10 minutes earlier and she would have been gone. This baby would have died. 10 minutes later and she would have been too late to help. She heard sirens in the distance, growing louder. Help was coming. She kept the baby pressed close, kept talking softly, kept praying to a God she wasn't sure she believed in anymore. The ambulance pulled up, lights flashing, and paramedics rushed down with their equipment. Maya handed over the baby reluctantly, explaining everything she'd done. They worked quickly, professionally, wrapping the infant in heated blankets, starting an IV with impossibly small needles, loading everything into the ambulance. You saved this baby's life, one paramedic told her. Another hour and it would have been too late. Maya climbed into the ambulance with them. She didn't even think about it. She just knew she couldn't leave this baby, not now. The letters on her kitchen counter, the bridge, her plan. All of it felt like it had happened to someone else, like it was from another lifetime. As the ambulance sped toward the hospital with sirens wailing, Maya looked down at the tiny face, now pink and breathing easier. And for the first time in months, she felt something other than pain. She felt needed. She felt like maybe, just maybe, she was supposed to be here after all. The emergency room at County General was a place Maya knew well. She'd walked through these doors hundreds of times during her years as a pediatric nurse. But this time felt different. This time she wasn't wearing scrubs. She wasn't here for a shift. She was here because she'd found an abandoned baby under a bridge at dawn, and she couldn't explain to anyone why she'd been on that bridge in the first place. The ER staff moved quickly, taking the baby into a trauma room. Maya stood outside, watching through the glass window as they worked. Nurses she used to work with. Doctors she knew by name. One of them, Dr. Patterson, glanced up and recognized her. His eyebrows went up in surprise, but he kept working. Questions could come later. Maya's hands were still shaking. She looked down at them and noticed they were dirty from the bushes, scratched from the branches. Her jacket was muddy. She must look like a mess. She felt like a mess. But for the first time in months, her hands weren't shaking from anxiety or grief. They were shaking from adrenaline, from purpose, from doing something that mattered. A nurse came out and gently guided Maya to a small waiting room. "The baby's stable," she said with a kind smile. "You did everything right. The doctors say your quick response saved this child's life." Maya nodded, unable to speak past the lump in her throat. The nurse brought her a cup of terrible hospital coffee and a warm blanket. "The police are on their way. They'll need to ask you some questions. Standard procedure for cases like this. Abandoned babies." Maya had seen a few during her nursing career, but never like this. Never found one herself. Never been the one to save them. She sat in the waiting room for about 20 minutes before a detective arrived. He was in his 40s, Latino, with kind eyes and a tired face that said he'd seen too much of the worst parts of humanity. He introduced himself as Detective Carlos Rodriguez and sat down across from her. "Ms. Chen," he said, pulling out a notebook. "Thank you for waiting. I know this has been a traumatic morning for you. I just need to get your statement about what happened." Maya told him everything. Well, almost everything. She explained that she'd been walking and heard the baby crying. She left out the part about why she'd been on that bridge. She left out the letters on her kitchen counter. She left out the despair that had brought her there and the railing she'd been about to climb over. But Detective Rodriguez was good at his job. He'd been doing this for 20 years, and he knew when people were leaving things out. "Ms. Chen," he said gently, "it was 5 in the morning. On a Tuesday. You were on that bridge in the cold. Can you tell me why you were there?" Maya felt her eyes fill with tears. She tried to hold them back, but they spilled over anyway. She couldn't look at him. She stared at her coffee cup instead, at the small ripples her shaking hands made on the surface. I wasn't walking," she whispered. I was there because..." She couldn't say it out loud. Couldn't admit what she'd been about to do. But she didn't have to. Detective Rodriguez leaned forward, his voice even gentler than before. "Were you there to hurt yourself?" Maya nodded, still not looking up. The tears were flowing freely now. "I had everything planned. I was going to... But then I heard the baby. And I couldn't, I had to help." There was a long silence. Maya waited for judgment, for questions, for him to treat her like she was crazy or unstable. Instead, he handed her a tissue from a box on the side table. "Maya," he said, using her first name now. "I'm not here to judge you. I'm here to help. But I need to know, are you safe now? Do you have thoughts of hurting yourself right now?" Maya thought about it. Really thought about it. And the answer surprised her. "No," she said quietly. Not right now. I don't know why, but finding that baby, it changed something." Detective Rodriguez nodded slowly. "Sometimes the universe has a strange way of putting us exactly where we need to be. You saved that baby's life, Maya. And maybe, just maybe, that baby saved yours too." He gave her the number for a crisis counselor and made her promise to call. He also asked if she'd be willing to stay involved with the case, to check on the baby's progress, to testify if they found whoever abandoned the child. Maya agreed to all of it. She wanted to stay involved. She needed to. Over the next few hours, Maya gave a full statement. She described exactly where she'd found the baby, the condition of the box and the towel, everything she could remember. Crime scene investigators would go back to the bridge to collect evidence. They'd try to find the mother. Finally, Dr. Patterson came out to talk to her. "The baby's doing well," he said. "Thanks to you. Hypothermia was the biggest concern, but we've got the body temperature back to normal. No signs of infection yet, but we're monitoring closely." "This little one's a fighter." "Boy or girl?" Maya asked. "Girl. About 6 to 8 hours old when you found her. The umbilical cord was tied off, so someone had some knowledge of what to do, but then they just left her there. He shook his head. I'll never understand it. Maya asked if she could see the baby, and Dr. Patterson nodded. Of course. You're the reason she's alive. The baby was in the NICU, wrapped in blankets, hooked up to monitors that beeped softly. She was sleeping now, her tiny chest rising and falling steadily. One of the NICU nurses had placed a small pink hat on her head. She looked peaceful. Safe. Maya stood by the incubator and just watched. This tiny human being who'd come into the world in the worst possible way had somehow changed everything. The crying that had pulled Maya back from the edge of that bridge had given her a reason to keep going. Even if just for a little while longer. We're calling her Hope, one of the nurses said softly, coming to stand beside Maya. Until we find out her real name, we needed something to call her. And it seemed fitting, you know? Hope. Maya felt fresh tears start. It's perfect. She stayed at the hospital for most of the day. She couldn't bring herself to leave. Other staff members she used to work with came by to say hello, surprised to see her. Word had spread about what she'd done. They treated her like a hero, but Maya didn't feel like a hero. She felt like someone who'd been given an unexpected second chance. Detective Rodriguez came back in the afternoon with an update. We're reviewing security footage from businesses near the bridge, he said. We're hoping to get a lead on who might have left the baby there. In the meantime, Child Protective Services is involved. Once Hope is medically cleared, she'll go into foster care until we figure out what happens next. He paused, studying Maya's face. You know, we could use someone with your medical knowledge to keep tabs on her case. Would you be willing to serve as a medical advocate, just to make sure she's getting proper care in the system? Maya hadn't expected that. I'm not working as a nurse anymore. I got laid off. I know, Rodriguez said quietly. I ran your background check. I know about your mother passing. I know about your job. I'm sorry, Maya, I really am. But you still have the knowledge and the training. And more importantly, you care about this baby. I can see it. Maya looked back through the glass at baby Hope sleeping peacefully. Yes, she said. I'll do it. I'll stay involved. That evening, Maya finally went home. She walked into her apartment and saw the letters still sitting on the counter, stamped and ready to mail. She picked them up one by one and tore them into small pieces. Then she threw them in the trash. She took a long shower, washing away the dirt and the tears and the exhaustion. When she got out, she looked at herself in the mirror again. She still looked tired. She still had dark circles under her eyes. But something was different. There was a spark there that hadn't been there this morning, a tiny flicker of purpose. Maya made herself dinner, the first real meal she'd eaten in days. She sat at the table alone, but it didn't feel quite as empty as it had before. She thought about baby Hope in the NICU. She thought about how close she'd come to not being there. She thought about how one moment, one sound, one cry in the darkness had changed everything. Her phone rang. It was Detective Rodriguez. I wanted to check on you, he said. Make sure you got home okay. And to tell you, we might have a lead. Security footage shows a young person, possibly a teenager, in the area around the time the baby was left. We're working on identifying them. That's good, Maya said. I hope whoever it is gets help. Me too, Rodriguez agreed. And Maya? I meant what I said earlier. You saved that baby's life. Don't forget that. On your darkest day, you still had light to give. That means something. After they hung up, Maya sat in the quiet apartment. It was still quiet. Her mom was still gone. Her job was still gone. Daniel was still gone. Nothing about her circumstances had changed. But something inside her had shifted. She'd felt needed today. She'd felt useful. She'd remembered what it was like to be good at something, to make a difference in someone's life. She pulled out her laptop and started searching for information about crisis pregnancy centers and youth shelters in the area. She didn't know why exactly. Maybe because she kept thinking about that teenager in the security footage, someone young and scared and desperate enough to leave a baby under a bridge, someone who probably needed help just as badly as the baby did. Maya spent the next few hours reading about organizations that helped young mothers, runaway teens, homeless youth. She learned about the gaps in services, the kids who fell through the cracks, the babies born to children barely more than children themselves. It was heartbreaking, but it was also something she understood. She'd been a pediatric nurse. She'd worked with scared parents, with difficult situations, with children who needed advocates. Maybe she could help. Maybe this was what she was supposed to do. It was a strange thought. This morning she'd been convinced she had nothing left to offer the world. Tonight she was considering volunteer work. How had everything changed so fast? But deep down Maya knew it wasn't that fast. It was one moment, one cry in the darkness, one baby who needed saving. And somehow, in saving that baby, Maya had found a reason to save herself. She went to bed that night and actually slept. For the first time in months, she slept through the night without nightmares, without waking up in tears. She dreamed of a tiny baby with a pink hat, sleeping peacefully in the NICU, surrounded by monitors that beeped a gentle rhythm like a lullaby. When Maya woke up the next morning, the sun was shining through her window. She got out of bed and walked to the kitchen. 22 steps from the bedroom to the bathroom. 13 more to the kitchen. The same apartment. The same empty chairs. But somehow this morning it felt different. She made coffee and sat at the table. She thought about baby Hope. She thought about Detective Rodriguez and his kind eyes. She thought about the teenager who'd left the baby, whoever they were, and hoped they'd be found safe. And for the first time since her mother died, Maya thought about tomorrow. Not with dread, but with something that felt almost like curiosity. What would happen next? Would they find the mother? Would baby Hope be okay? Would Maya be able to help? She didn't have answers. But for now, having questions was enough. It meant there was still something to stick around for. It meant the story wasn't over yet. 2 weeks passed and Maya found herself at the hospital every single day. At first she told herself she was just checking on baby Hope, making sure the little girl was getting proper care. But the truth was more complicated than that. The truth was that visiting Hope gave her a reason to get out of bed. It gave her somewhere to go, something to do, someone who needed her. Hope was thriving. She'd gained weight. Her color was perfect and she had the loudest cry in the NICU. The nurses joked that she was making up for all the crying she didn't get to do in those first cold hours of life. Maya loved visiting her. She'd stand by the incubator, sometimes for hours, just watching the baby sleep or talking to her softly when she was awake. Detective Rodriguez called her regularly with updates. The investigation was moving forward. They'd identified the person in the security footage, a 16-year-old girl named Tessa Huang, who'd been reported as a runaway 6 months earlier. They'd been trying to locate her, but she'd vanished into the streets, probably scared of what would happen if she came forward. "We're not looking to punish her," Rodriguez told Maya over coffee one afternoon. They'd started meeting regularly to discuss the case, though Maya suspected he was also checking on her well-being. "We're looking to help her. A 16-year-old leaving a baby like that, she's a victim too. She needs support, not jail time." Maya agreed completely. She couldn't stop thinking about Tessa. How scared she must have been. How alone. Getting pregnant at 15, running away, giving birth by herself somewhere, and then making the desperate choice to leave her baby behind. It was heartbreaking. "I want to help her," Maya said suddenly. "If you find her, I want to be involved. I want her to know that I don't hate her, that I understand." Rodriguez looked at her thoughtfully. "You've got a good heart, Maya, even after everything you've been through." Maya shrugged. "Maybe that's why I understand. When you're in that much pain, when you feel that hopeless, you make decisions that don't make sense to anyone else. But in that moment, it feels like the only option." She didn't have to explain what she meant. Rodriguez knew. He'd been checking on her mental state since that first day, making sure she was safe, making sure she was getting help. Maya had started seeing a therapist twice a week. It wasn't easy, talking about her grief and her depression in that morning on the bridge. But it was helping. Slowly. On the 15th day after finding Hope, something happened. Maya was at the hospital, sitting in a chair next to Hope's incubator, reading a book out loud, even though the baby was too young to understand. She did it anyway. Someone had once told her that babies could recognize voices, that it was important to talk to them. "Excuse me," a voice said softly. Maya looked up to see a young girl standing a few feet away. She was thin, too thin, wearing clothes that were too big for her. Her hair was pulled back in a messy ponytail. She looked terrified. It was Tessa. Maya knew immediately, even though she'd never seen a photo. She just knew. "Are you Maya Chen?" the girl asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "Yes," Maya said gently, setting down her book. "Are you Tessa?" The girl nodded, tears already streaming down her face. "I saw you on the news. They said you found her, that you saved her life." She looked at the incubator at baby Hope sleeping peacefully. "Is she okay? Please tell me she's okay." "She's perfect," Maya said. "She's healthy and strong. Come here. Come see her." Tessa approached slowly, like she was afraid she'd be stopped, like she didn't deserve to see the baby she'd left behind. When she got close enough to see Hope clearly, she broke down completely, sobbing so hard her whole body shook. Maya stood up and did something that surprised even herself. She wrapped her arms around this girl, this stranger, this teenager, who'd abandoned a baby under a bridge, and she held her while she cried. "I'm so sorry," Tessa sobbed. "I'm so sorry. I didn't know what else to do. I was scared. I didn't have anyone. I thought she'd die if I kept her. I thought maybe someone would find her faster if I left her somewhere people might walk by. I didn't want to hurt her. I promise I didn't want to hurt her." "I know," Maya said softly. "I know you didn't. You were doing the best you could with what you had. And look, she's okay. She's going to be just fine." They stood there for a long time, this unlikely pair, a 34-year-old former nurse who'd almost ended her own life and a 16-year-old runaway who'd left her baby to be found by strangers. Both of them were crying. Both of them were broken. Both of them needed saving. Maya called Detective Rodriguez and he came to the hospital right away. But instead of handcuffs and harsh words, he brought social workers and advocates. They took Tessa to a private room and talked to her for hours. Maya went with her at Tessa's request. The girl clutched Maya's hand the whole time. Tessa's story was heartbreaking. She'd run away from home because her stepfather was abusive. She'd been living on the streets trying to survive. She got pregnant after being assaulted by someone she'd thought was helping her. She didn't know she was pregnant until it was too late for options. She'd been too afraid to go to a hospital, too afraid of being sent back home. She'd given birth alone in an abandoned building, using things she'd learned from the internet. Then she'd panicked, convinced she couldn't take care of a baby when she couldn't even take care of herself. "I walked past that bridge every day," Tessa said, her voice hollow. "I knew people walked there in the mornings. I thought someone would find her fast. I thought she'd be safer with someone else, anyone else. I'm nobody. I'm nothing. I have nothing to give a baby." Maya's heart broke for her. "Tessa, you're 16 years old. You survived things no teenager should ever have to survive. You gave birth alone and made sure your baby lived. You tied off the cord correctly. You wrapped her to keep her warm. You left her somewhere she'd be found. Those were acts of love, not abandonment. You did the best you could." "I should have done better," Tessa whispered. "You were a child trying to save a child," Maya said firmly. "And you did. She's alive because of the choices you made. That matters." Over the next few days, things moved quickly. Tessa was placed in a youth shelter with programs specifically designed for teenage mothers who'd been through trauma. She wasn't charged with abandonment. Instead, the district attorney's office agreed to focus on getting her services and support. Detective Rodriguez made sure of that. Maya visited Tessa at the shelter. They talked for hours about everything and nothing. Tessa wanted to know about Hope, every detail. How much she weighed. What her cry sounded like. Whether she seemed happy. Maya showed her photos and videos on her phone. "Can I see her?" Tessa asked one day. "In person? Or is that not allowed?" Maya checked with the social workers in the hospital. It was complicated. Tessa had technically abandoned the baby, even if it was under duress, but everyone involved agreed that supervised visits might be therapeutic for both Tessa and Hope. After all, Tessa was still the biological mother. She had rights, even if those rights might eventually be terminated. The first visit was supervised by 3 different people, but it went beautifully. Tessa held Hope for the first time since giving birth. She cried. Maya cried. Even Detective Rodriguez, watching from the doorway, had to wipe his eyes. "She's so beautiful," Tessa whispered, looking down at the baby in her arms. "She deserves everything good in the world. She deserves better than me. She deserves a mother who's healthy and safe and supported," Maya said gently. "And maybe with the right help you can become that person. But that's not a decision you have to make today. Today you just get to hold your daughter and know that she's okay." As Maya watched Tessa with Hope, something clicked into place in her mind. She'd been spending every day at the hospital or at the shelter. She'd been checking on Hope and supporting Tessa and working with the social workers. She'd been doing nursing work without even realizing it. She'd been helping people and it felt good. It felt right. It felt like purpose. That evening, Maya went home and made a phone call. There was a crisis pregnancy center she'd been researching. They needed volunteers, people with medical training who could help young women navigate pregnancy, childbirth, and early motherhood, people who could be advocates and mentors and support systems for girls like Tessa. "I'd like to volunteer," Maya told the woman who answered. "I'm a former pediatric nurse, and I have some experience with these kinds of situations." She started the next week, 2 afternoons and 1 evening shift. It wasn't paid work, but she had enough savings to get by for a while. And this mattered more than money right now. This was making a difference. At the center, Maya met dozens of young women in impossible situations. Teenagers who were pregnant and scared. Young mothers who didn't know how to care for their babies. Women who'd been abused or abandoned or forgotten by everyone who should have protected them. Maya helped them all. She taught them how to change diapers and prepare bottles. She explained medical terms in plain language.
She held their hands during difficult conversations.
She just listened when they needed someone to hear their stories. She also started volunteering at the homeless youth shelter where Tessa was staying. She ran a weekly support group for young mothers. Tessa came to every session. So did 5 other girls, all of them dealing with their own versions of impossible circumstances. "You all survived things you shouldn't have had to survive," Maya told them at the first meeting. "And you're still here. That takes incredible strength. I want you to know that you're not alone. Not anymore." As she said those words, Maya realized she was talking to herself too. She'd survived things she shouldn't have had to survive. Her mom's death, the breakup, losing her job, the depression that had nearly taken her life. But she was still here, and she wasn't alone anymore either. Detective Rodriguez became a regular presence in Maya's life. He'd check in on her, update her about the case, sometimes just call to chat. His wife, Patricia, ran a nonprofit that provided services to at-risk mothers. She and Maya had lunch one day, and Patricia offered her a part-time job as a family advocate. "We can't pay much," Patricia admitted, "but you'd be working with mothers and babies, helping them navigate the system, making sure they get the services they need. Based on everything Carlos has told me, you'd be perfect for it." Maya accepted immediately. It wasn't the same as being a pediatric nurse, but it was close. It was using her skills and her training to help people who needed it most. And it paid enough to cover her rent and bills. That was all she needed. Baby Hope continued to thrive. After 3 weeks in the NICU, she was medically cleared for foster care. Maya was there the day they transferred her to a foster family. She cried as she said goodbye, even though she knew she'd be able to visit. This baby had saved her life, and now the baby was moving on to the next chapter of her story. Tessa was there too. She held Hope one last time before the foster parents arrived. "Take care of her," she whispered to them. "Please take good care of her. She's special." "We will," the foster mother promised. "And you can visit whenever you want. We'll work with the social workers to make sure of that." After Hope left with her new temporary family, Tessa and Maya sat together in the hospital cafeteria, both of them emotionally drained. "What happens now?" Tessa asked quietly. "Now you focus on you," Maya said. "You're in therapy. You're in school. You're safe. You work on healing and figuring out what kind of future you want, and I'll be here. Whenever you need to talk, whenever you need support, I'll be here." "Why are you doing all this?" Tessa asked suddenly. "Why do you care so much about me? I'm the one who left my baby under a bridge. Most people think I'm a monster." Maya was quiet for a moment, trying to figure out how to explain. "Because I know what it's like to feel hopeless," she finally said. "I know what it's like to think you have no options, to feel like you're drowning and no one can save you. The morning I found Hope, I was on that bridge because I was going to jump. I was going to end my life. But then I heard your baby crying and everything changed." Tessa stared at her, eyes wide. "You were going to—" "Yes," Maya said simply, "I was. But I didn't because of Hope. Because of you in a way. You put her in a place where someone would find her, and that someone happened to be me. At exactly the moment I needed a reason to keep living. So don't ask me why I care. I care because we saved each other. All 3 of us. We're connected now, whether we planned it or not." Tears ran down Tessa's face. "I'm glad you didn't jump," she whispered. "Me too," Maya said, reaching across the table to take the girl's hand. "Me too." 3 months had passed since that cold morning on the bridge, and Maya barely recognized her own life. She woke up early now, but not because she couldn't sleep. She woke up because she had places to be, people who needed her, work that mattered. The crushing silence in her apartment had been replaced by the busy noise of a life that had purpose again. She was working part-time at Patricia Rodriguez's nonprofit, helping at-risk mothers navigate social services, medical care, and housing resources. She was also volunteering 2 evenings a week at the Crisis Pregnancy Center and running her support group at the youth shelter every Thursday night. It was exhausting sometimes, but it was the good kind of exhausted, the kind that came from doing meaningful work, not from drowning in grief and depression. Maya had also started therapy regularly. Twice a week she sat in Dr. Lisa Kim's small office and talked about her mother, about Daniel, about the bridge, about everything that had led her to that moment. It wasn't easy. Some sessions left her emotionally raw, crying in her car before she could drive home. But it was helping. The fog that had surrounded her for so long was lifting bit by bit. "You've come a long way," Dr. Kim told her during one session. 3 months ago you were planning to end your life. Now look at you. You're helping others, building connections, finding meaning. That's remarkable progress. Maya nodded, but she didn't feel remarkable. She felt like she was just surviving one day at a time. Some days were better than others. She still had moments when the grief hit her like a wave. She still cried about her mom. She still felt angry about Daniel leaving her when she needed him most. She still worried about money and whether she'd ever have the kind of stable life she used to have. But she also had good days. Days when she laughed at the shelter with the young mothers. Days when she helped someone get approved for housing and saw the relief on their face. Days when Detective Rodriguez texted her a funny meme or Patricia invited her over for dinner. Days when she felt like maybe, just maybe, she was going to be okay. Tessa was doing better too. The 16-year-old was attending an alternative high school for teens with complicated circumstances. She was in trauma therapy 3 times a week. She'd put on some healthy weight and her eyes didn't have that haunted look anymore. She was still quiet, still cautious, but there was hope in her now. Real hope. Not just the name of the baby she'd left under the bridge. They'd become close, Maya and Tessa. It wasn't quite a mother-daughter relationship. Wasn't quite friendship. Wasn't quite mentorship. It was something unique, something born from shared trauma and mutual saving. They texted every day. They had coffee twice a week. Maya went to Tessa's school events when the girl had no one else to cheer for her. "You don't have to do all this," Tessa said one day as they sat in a coffee shop near the shelter. "I'm just some kid you found under a bridge." "You're not just some kid," Maya said firmly. "You're a survivor. You're brave. You're working hard to build a better life. And I care about you. Let me care about you." Tessa looked down at her coffee cup. "No one's ever really cared about me before. Not like this." Maya felt her heart break a little. "Well, I do. Get used to it." They still visited baby Hope together, now living with her foster family, the Clarks. They were a couple in their early 40s who'd been fostering for years. They were patient and kind, and they welcomed both Maya and Tessa to visit whenever they wanted. Hope was growing so fast. She was smiling now, cooing, recognizing faces. She'd light up when she saw Maya or Tessa. The Clarks sent photos almost daily. Hope wearing a tiny bow in her hair. Hope grabbing her toes. Hope sleeping with a stuffed elephant that Tessa had bought for her. The legal situation was complicated. Tessa hadn't formally given up her parental rights, but she also wasn't in a position to parent. The state was giving her time to get stable, to finish school, to heal from her trauma. Then they'd revisit the question of Hope's future. Did Tessa want to parent eventually? Did she want to choose adoption? Did she want some kind of open arrangement where Hope was adopted, but she could still be involved? "I don't know what I want," Tessa admitted to Maya one evening at the support group. The other young mothers had left and they were cleaning up together. "I love her, I do. But I'm 16. I'm still in high school. I'm barely taking care of myself. How could I take care of a baby?" "Those are really good questions," Maya said. "And you don't have to answer them right now. You have time. Focus on getting yourself healthy and stable. The rest will become clear when you're ready." "What do you think I should do?" Tessa asked. Maya paused, choosing her words carefully. "I think you should do what's best for Hope and what's best for you. And sometimes those things are the same and sometimes they're not. Only you can figure that out." One afternoon, Maya got a call from Patricia. I've been thinking about something, Patricia said. You know how you're always talking about how there aren't enough resources for young mothers, especially ones who've been through trauma? Yes, Maya said. The gaps in services are huge. These girls fall through the cracks all the time. What if we changed that? What if we created a program specifically for them? A place where young mothers could live while they finish school, get therapy, learn parenting skills all in one supportive environment. We could call it New Beginnings or something. Maya felt a spark of excitement. That would be amazing. But that would take funding, space, staff. I know, Patricia said. It's a big project. But I think we could do it, and I think you should help me lead it. You understand these girls. You've lived through darkness yourself. You know what they need. Will you help me? Yes, Maya said without hesitation. Absolutely yes. They started working on the proposal immediately. They researched similar programs in other cities. They crunched numbers and wrote grant applications and reached out to potential donors. It was a massive undertaking. But Maya threw herself into it completely. This could help girls like Tessa. This could change lives. As Maya worked on the project, she realized something. She needed to share her story. The real story, not just about finding hope, but about why she'd been on that bridge in the first place. People needed to understand the connection, needed to see how saving someone else had saved her too. She started writing. At first it was just for herself, a way to process everything that had happened. But the more she wrote, the more she realized this story needed to be told, not for her ego, but because somewhere out there someone else was standing on a metaphorical bridge, convinced they had nothing left to offer the world, and maybe, just maybe, her story could help them hold on a little longer. Maya shared her writing with Dr. Kim, who encouraged her to keep going. She shared it with Patricia, who cried while reading it. She shared it with Detective Rodriguez, who said it was the most honest thing he'd ever read about depression and purpose and second chances. You should publish this, he said. People need to hear this. I don't know, Maya said hesitantly. It's so personal, and I'm not a writer. You don't have to be a professional writer to tell your truth, Carlos said, and your truth could save lives. Think about it. Maya did think about it. She thought about all the people suffering in silence. She thought about the stigma around mental health, around suicide, around feeling like you failed at life. She thought about how alone she'd felt, how convinced she'd been that no one would understand. She kept writing. She wrote about her mother's death and the unbearable grief. She wrote about Daniel leaving and feeling abandoned. She wrote about losing her job and feeling worthless. She wrote about the bridge and the plan and the letters she'd addressed. She wrote about the cry in the darkness that had pulled her back. She wrote about hope in Tessa and finding purpose in helping others. She titled it, The Cry That Saved Two Lives. A friend from her nursing school days worked at a local magazine. Maya sent her the essay expecting nothing. But 3 days later, her friend called. Maya, this is incredible. We want to publish it. And I think it's going to help a lot of people. The essay came out in the magazine's mental health awareness issue. Within days, it was being shared online. People sent messages to Maya through the magazine's website. People who'd been where she was. People who understood. People who were inspired by her story of finding purpose after hitting rock bottom. A local news station reached out. They wanted to do a segment about her story, about hope, about the work she was doing now. Maya almost said no. She didn't want to be on television, didn't want to be the face of anything, but Patricia convinced her. Think about how many people you could reach, Patricia said. Think about the young mothers watching who feel hopeless. Think about the people struggling with depression who need to see that there's a way forward. Your story matters, Maya. Share it. So Maya did the interview. She sat on a couch in a TV studio and told her story to a reporter, who listened with tears in her eyes. She talked about the bridge. She talked about Hope's Cry. She talked about Tessa and the shelter and the nonprofit and finding purpose in helping others heal. The segment aired on a Friday evening. By Saturday morning, Maya's phone wouldn't stop ringing. Messages poured in from people who'd seen the interview. Some shared their own stories of depression and survival. Some asked for resources and help. Some just wanted to say thank you for being honest about the darkest parts of being human. One message stood out. It was from a woman named Beth who worked at a publishing house. I saw your interview, she wrote. I read your essay. I think you should write a book. I think your story could help millions of people. Would you be interested in discussing this? A book. Maya had never considered writing a book, but as she thought about it, she realized she had so much more to say. She wanted to write about grief and depression and feeling like a failure. She wanted to write about second chances and finding purpose in the unexpected ways we save each other. She wanted to write about Hope and Tessa and all the young mothers she'd met who were fighting impossible battles with courage and resilience. She called Beth back. "Yes," she said. "I want to write this book." Over the next several months, Maya worked on the book while continuing her work at the nonprofit. She wrote early in the mornings before work and late at night after her support groups. She interviewed other people who'd survived suicide attempts and found purpose afterward. She interviewed young mothers who'd overcome incredible obstacles. She interviewed foster parents and social workers and crisis counselors. Tessa agreed to be interviewed for the book under a different name to protect her privacy. She talked about her story with raw honesty. About the abuse, the assault, the pregnancy, the fear. About leaving Hope under the bridge and thinking it was the only option. About meeting Maya and learning what support and compassion looked like. "Maya saved my life," Tessa said in the interview. "Not in the way she saved Hope's life, but she showed me that I mattered, that I deserved help, that my past didn't have to define my future. She believed in me when I didn't believe in myself. That's what saved me." As Maya typed up Tessa's words, she started crying, because Tessa didn't fully understand yet. Tessa had saved Maya's life too, by leaving Hope where she'd be found, by creating that moment of connection, by showing Maya that she still had something to offer the world. They'd saved each other. That's what Maya wanted people to understand. We save each other in ways we don't always recognize. Our lives are connected in invisible threads of meaning and purpose. The book took 9 months to write. 9 months of pouring her heart onto the page, of reliving painful memories, of finding words for experiences that had felt wordless. 9 months of hope and fear and wondering if any of this mattered. When she finally typed the last sentence, Maya sat back in her chair and cried. Not sad tears this time. Relief tears. Accomplishment tears. Tears that came from finishing something that felt important and true. She sent the manuscript to Beth, who called her 2 days later. "Maya, this is beautiful. This is going to help so many people. We want to publish this. We want the world to read this." The book deal was modest, but it was real. Maya was going to be a published author. Her story was going to be in bookstores. People she'd never meet would read about that morning on the bridge, about Hope's cry, about finding purpose in the darkness. She told Tessa first. The girl was 17 now, about to graduate from high school. She decided to pursue an open adoption for Hope. The Clarks wanted to adopt her, and they'd agreed to let Tessa remain involved. Hope would know Tessa was her birth mother. Tessa could visit regularly. It wasn't perfect, but it was what worked for everyone involved. "I'm so proud of you," Tessa said when Maya told her about the book. "You're going to help so many people." "We're going to help so many people," Maya corrected. "This is your story too. You're part of this.